Trump wants to loot Syria's oil, and he wants everyone to know.
We are leaving soldiers to secure the oil, and we may have to fight for the oil. It's okay. And what I intend to do, perhaps, is make a deal with an ExxonMobil or one of our great companies to go in there and do it properly.
Dude, you're not supposed to say that out loud. It's in bad taste. But he and his defense secretary keep saying it.
We have troops in towns in northeast Syria that are located next to the oil fields.
We've taken control of the oil in the Middle East
in order to ensure we secure the oil fields, to strengthen our position at Dar es-Zar.
Not even close. I think what you meant to say was Deir ez-Zor. But please continue.
Our forces will remain in the towns that are located near the oil fields.
We've secured the oil, and therefore a small number of U.S. troops will remain in the area where they have the oil.
This all comes after Trump greenlit a Turkish invasion of northeast Syria and withdrew U.S. troops, sending Washington into meltdown mode as Turkish-backed Syrian jihadists, formerly armed by the U.S., began slaughtering Kurds in Syrian towns under the control of the YPG. It was a huge embarrassment for the regime change cheerleaders who spent years demanding we arm the so-called moderate rebels, especially after it was revealed that 21 of the 28 groups fighting for Turkey against the Kurds had been armed by the U.S. Oops. And then the U.S. reportedly killed ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in Idlib of all places. The same Idlib that the media kept telling us was the epicenter of some sort of democratic Syrian revolution. The same Idlib which the U.S. was protecting for years from Syrian and Russian military campaigns against the jihadist groups that rule the area. It's been a tough month for the foreign policy blob. First, an American withdrawal, then they find out their moderate rebels suck. And now the image of Idlib as democratic and revolutionary is shattered. But it seems Trump is changing his tune. First, Trump said he's totally leaving and it's a serious problem.
We want to bring our troops back home.
Then everybody was shocked when Lindsey Graham said the U.S. will stay and take the oil.
The big thing for me is the oil fields. President Trump is thinking outside the box. I was so impressed with his thinking about the oil.
Initially, it seemed Trump was just trying to placate angry Republicans, who were attacking him for abandoning the Kurds and letting ISIS return. But then the U.S. military convinced Trump to keep a residual force. So now Trump is insisting that the U.S. is going to stay in Syria to make money off of the oil. Aside from this being arrogant and imperialist, it's totally unfeasible for the U.S. to actually take the oil. First of all, it's not legal. You can't just go around taking other countries' resources like it's 1800.
For the president to suggest that we will invite U.S. oil companies in, that violates international law. That oil belongs to the Syrian government, whether we like the Syrian government or not.
And no oil company will agree to work illegally in Syria, especially knowing that the U.S. military presence is temporary. Second, it's geographically impossible. The oil fields in question are in an Arab area.
Dar es-Zar.
Yeah, that's the one. While most of the Kurdish population that makes up the SDF is in the 30-kilometer zone that the Russians just created in the north for the regime. So this idea that the Kurdish-led SDF, which is in the process of switching allegiances to the Syrian government, can just move south and control oil fields with American protection makes no sense. And who will they sell it to? The YPG was selling Syria's oil to the Syrian government, as well as to Iraq's Kurdistan regional government. But they no longer have access to the KRG border, and the Syrian government doesn't need that oil anymore, because there's plenty of it in the 30-kilometer zone. That's in addition to dams they just gained back, which will be used to fuel power stations. The White House claims it also wants to protect the oil from ISIS and Iran, but this makes no sense either. ISIS isn't there, and the oil fields have been secure for a long time and can be handed over to the Syrian government. And Iran has oil. It's not trying to take Syrian oil. In fact, if it's Iranian involvement in Syria you're worried about, then returning the oil to the Syrian government will free it from dependence on Iran for economic and fuel support. Whatever the case, Trump is like a cartoon of U.S. imperial hubris.
But we're keeping the oil. Remember that. I've always said that. Keep the oil. We want to keep the oil. $45 million a month. Keep the oil. We've secured the oil.
Looting the resources of other countries is what empires do. It's what America does. But usually the U.S. does this in the name of humanitarian intervention or national security. And usually the U.S. doesn't do it directly, but rather it creates the conditions for American capitalists to loot the third world. With Trump, the mask slips off. There's no pretending that it's about helping the locals. It's straight up in-your-face pillaging without shame. Trump even met twice with former Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi and told him he wanted Iraq's oil. And that's what makes liberals uncomfortable. Not the pillaging per se, but the brazen admission that looting is the intention.
It was very distasteful.
Exactly. It's in poor taste to say it out loud. Let's not forget the time Neera Tanden, leader of the Democratic Party think tank Center for American Progress, privately argued in leaked emails that Libya should pay us back for bombing their country by giving us their oil, which is just a nicer way of saying,
I'm only interested in Libya if we take the oil. If we don't take the oil, I have no interest in Libya.
it's messed up, but at least he says it loud enough for all of us to hear.